guy from Brooklyn. What do you think of that?
Things are definitely scrambled around here.
Okay. Thank you for participating. Nice to see you all. No, I've had this for a while, but I did spend Father's Day with my 6-month-old little grandson, and it was the greatest. Who smiles and everything good. Okay, eat solid food. My son-in-law feeds him hot sauce to help his digestive system. No, that's in the books now. The more different things you feed them, the better their gastrointestinal system is. The books, I'll just give you one observation, young parents. This is... So when Iris and I raised our children and something went wrong, you'd call your parents, the mothers on each side, and get the wisdom of the centuries, which almost always worked. These days, the kids go online and they see so much, and it says there's a 0.01% chance that this bad thing will happen, and it drives them crazy. It would be as if before you crossed the street, you went online and they said there's a 0.01% chance you get hit by a car and you worry about crossing the street. It's an example of too much information. Okay, so parents, call your young parents, call your parents. Don't read all these online things, okay? Yeah. Okay, look, this is on a serious subject, which is interference in the elections. Everyone knows that Russia interfered in our elections in 2016. That eats at the roots of our great democracy, the oak that has thrived. And the Founding Fathers themselves, one of their greatest worries was foreign interference in elections. The Mueller report showed conclusively that Russia interfered in 2016 to help President Trump. The FBI, intelligence agencies agreed. President Putin agreed as well. So just last week, Senator McConnell was asked why the Senate hasn't voted on election security legislation. He responded by telling reporters that they needed to write about the absence of problems in the 2018 election. Now, Senator McConnell's comments come after learning in the Mueller report that election systems in Florida counties were hacked by Russia. 3 years later, the public is still learning how Russia interfered with our democracies. It is irresponsible by the Republican leader to declare mission accomplished about the 2018 elections. Director Wray of the FBI said, quote, "Our adversaries are going to keep adapting and upping their game." And he called the midterms a dress rehearsal for the big show. Director Wray says things are going to get a lot worse in 2020, and the Republican Senate Leader McConnell just stands there and twiddles their thumbs and says almost, "Come on, Putin, let it happen." Senator McConnell's comments are totally inconsistent with the warnings from the special counsel and from the FBI director. Intelligence community leaders have repeatedly warned us that foreign powers will interfere with elections again. And it's not just Russia, although they're the worst. China, North Korea, Iran, all could do it. Simply put, it is Congress's solemn obligation to protect our elections, the wellspring of our democracy, and any leader who doesn't do that is abdicating their responsibilities to our grand democracy. The Russians and our adversaries want to undermine faith in our democracy. And if Russia or any other country is able to interfere in the 2020 elections, it's going to shake confidence in our democracy to the core. It endangers the future of this democracy, plain and simple. It's that serious. So Leader McConnell and his Senate Republicans have a choice. They can continue to ignore the problem, do nothing, and whistle past Mitch McConnell's legislative graveyard while our democracy is under threat, or they can join us and get serious about securing elections. So far, Leader McConnell, as you know, has buried bill after bill in his legislative graveyard. Democrats will keep pushing McConnell and the Senate to secure elections in several different ways. First, we will continue to press Leader McConnell to allow debate, and we're going to hold standalone votes, vote after vote, on the many bills that already exist on election security. Last week, Senator Warner called for unanimous consent on his legislation, which would legally require presidential campaign to report contact from a foreign intelligence source. Something as simple as that. Just report it to the FBI, and our Republicans blocked it. Senator Blumenthal, Feinstein, and Klobuchar have legislation on this issue. You'll hear from them later this afternoon at our stakeout. Senator Van Hollen has the DETER Act with Senator Rubio, which would say if Russia does something in 2020 in interfering with our elections, severe sanctions go into effect. Senator Menendez has a Russia sanctions bill with Senator Graham. So Leader McConnell has plenty of good options to choose from. There's no reason why the Senate can't take up and debate any of these bills. We'd be willing to limit the time and amendments to germaneness. So this is not an attempt to get other issues out there as important as those other issues are. So first, we need to debate it. Second, I am calling on Leader McConnell to allow votes on amendments to the NDAA, to the defense bill coming up this week, related to securing our elections from foreign interference. This is a national security issue. Make no mistake about it. It belongs in the NDAA. We're going to start consideration of NDAA as early as tomorrow. And again, many of my colleagues, Blumenthal, Feinstein, Warner, Klobuchar, will seek to make sure the Senate acts on their amendments to the bill to secure elections from foreign interference. NDAA, as I said, has always been about protecting national security. And if protecting our elections from foreign interference isn't a national security issue, then what the heck is? I strongly urge McConnell to let senators have a vote on these amendments so we can do the right thing for our democracy. Third, so first, we're going to bring bills to the floor and demand we'll do UCs until he lets us have a debate on this issue. Second, amendments to NDAA. Third, we're going to push for more election security money as part of the budget caps deal in the appropriations process. I will bring it up tomorrow at our meeting among the leaders. 2 years ago, Democrats secured $380 million in the appropriations process. It was well spent, all spent. Everyone agrees it was effective. Last year, Republicans blocked additional funding. We're going to demand additional funding in this upcoming budget negotiation. The bottom line, Senate Republicans need to step up and help. I want to make this very clear. Democrats are determined not to let Leader McConnell and Senate Republicans sweep the issue of securing elections from foreign interference under the rug. We will not let this issue stay buried in Leader McConnell's legislative graveyard. Questions first on this subject.
In 2016, Senator McConnell blocked a bipartisan statement about the interference that was going on, and now he's blocking legislation to prevent future interference. Do you think this is because he wants it to happen, because he thinks it will benefit his party?
You know, it's hard to come up with any good reason why one should block this. It's bipartisan. There are lots of bipartisan bills. Senators Graham, Langford, and others have worked on legislation, Blunt. And so it's hard to figure out. I hope it's not because he thinks it will benefit him, because, you know, Putin could turn around in a minute and then, you know, do things that he doesn't like. But I am befuddled and at a loss as to why any leader of our country, Democrat or Republican, would seek not to do more to secure our elections. I have no good explanation, and I hope it's not because he thinks that Russian interference would benefit President Trump or his party. I hope and pray that's not the case on this subject, because she gets the first off top.
Okay. So to that end, though, do you think, we've heard reports that the president, when talking about election security, talking about allegations of problems in the 2016 election, that sets him off? Do you think that Republicans are standing in the way because they're afraid that this is going to cross the president, maybe not for those nefarious reasons, but it's going to set him off and that's going to ignite a firestorm with him?
Look, on so many different issues, fear dominates the Republican senators. Fear of offending, enraging President Trump, who we know's behavior is erratic in response. when you hear what they say privately and then what they do publicly, there's a huge chasm on this issue and many other issues. But yes, I think fear is part of it. But you know, sometimes you got to stand up for democracy. Yes.
We've heard from many Senate Republicans who indicated an openness, say legislation
Great.
of some sort is potentially necessary, but they keep saying that the Warner bill specifically is too broad. Would you be open to having an amendment?
Yes. The first thing we want is debate and discussion. And we're certainly open to listening to other suggestions. There's a Blumenthal bill, there's a Feinstein bill on a similar subject. Maybe they want those. We're not wedded to a specific language. We are wedded to getting something done. And there is no question that if a foreign power sought to interfere with an election, there's an obligation of any elected official to tell the FBI. Yes.
Senator, to give some acknowledgement, in the 2018...
I acknowledge him all the time. I did today. Maybe not so positively.
As far as one reason why the 2018 election might have been without interference, is a strategy from the Defense Department defending forward, where they proactively
Yes.
down the IRA.
We don't, no one knows why there is a general view that 2018 wasn't as bad as 2016. There are a lot of explanations. One is we have found better ways to deal with it. A second is that the Russians laid low because they're really waiting for 2020. A third is that they have found new techniques that we didn't detect in 2018. So there are a lot of reasons, but every expert expects it to be worse in 2020, including the FBI director, who's President Trump's own appointee, who has more knowledge of this than anybody else. So why not do something?
So the question then is, should that strategy of the Pentagon's defending forward be included in these discussions?
Absolutely. I'd want the Pentagon to do everything they could to stop interference in our elections. And I have a lot of faith that the people in the cybersecurity parts of the Defense Department, the CIA, the FBI want to do things, but they've gotten no leadership from President Trump and no leadership from McConnell. In addition, we need the state governments to do things. They're not as on top of it as the federal, and that's why we need to give them some more help, financially and otherwise. Yes.
Do you think it's possible to shame Mitch McConnell into doing anything, given that Democrats have failed to do that in the past?
Well, look, the bottom line is this is so important, we're going to keep trying. And just last night, I'm going off topic here, you know, it seems that Jon Stewart is having an effect on him on the 9/11 bill. So, yes, I think it is possible.
I have a question on that, actually.
Oh, I know, but you don't get the first off topic. Are we any more on topics, but no tricks? Okay.
Senator Lisa
We can't violate the rules of this game.
although I would appreciate it if you came back after.
I will. Okay.
Senator Lisa Murkowski was quoted on this topic as saying that she wants to work on issues that are actually important to her constituents back home. She seemed to suggest it was politically motivated. I think a lot of people were surprised because she tends to be a swing Republican vote. What do you think explains her comment?
I have no idea. I hope she changed her mind. And let me tell you, if there's large interference in 2020, she'll be hearing it from her constituents in 2021. Yes. Is that any more on this subject? 1, 2, 3, and then we go to you.
This is a different subject.
It's on subject.
On subject, in terms
Let's not be like Donald Trump and violate all the rules. You guys believe in rules.
on giving assistance to the states, do you think that that should include having requirements for vendors of voting machine systems to implement cybersecurity measures?
Yes. Requirements, I certainly think there should be dollars to do it, and encouragement. How requirements would work, I'm not sure, but it's a very important part of help. As we've seen in Florida, and we've seen in other areas. We even saw in New York there was interference with the Iranians on a dam, you know, on the sluice gates of a small dam in Westchester. You have the last one on this subject, ma'am.
Are Democrats going to be pushing for a specific level of additional election security funding?
It'll be a more robust level than we did 2 years ago. Okay, first question off topic.
On Iran, the leader was on the floor this morning saying that Democrats had refused a briefing from the career diplomat at state that who's
Yes.
briefing them at their lunch. Can you just comment on that?
Look, this is very serious, and military engagement with Iran and whatever that might entail, and we know that these things have a habit of escalating almost on their own, should be discussed with the American people. Not number 3 in the State Department going to a closed-door meeting. The president, instead of tonight talking about all this immigration stuff, which he's gonna, he ought to tell the people at his rally what he wants to do in Iran. The policy in Iran has been erratic and opaque. Nobody knows what their plans are and why they're doing what. And as we have learned since the 60s, unless the American people are on board with a strategy, it ultimately is not going to get their support and Congress's support. So we need the president, and I told this to Mr. Pompeo, to Secretary of State Pompeo on the phone Saturday, we need the president to lay out what he thinks the problem is, and there is a problem, how he wants to deal with it, and what are his limits in dealing with it before action.
So you acknowledge there is a problem, but to what degree are you concerned?
I'm concerned. I don't know what their strategy is, and it doesn't seem consistent. It seems when the president wakes up one morning, he says something, and then 2 days later he says something else. One day he says he's going to obliterate them, and the next day he says he wants to talk to them. It's not just senators. All the American people are scratching their heads. What the heck is going on? You don't, on something as serious as this, you consult with the American people and tell them what your strategy is. You need public support for these kinds of things, more and more and more, as every conflict has shown over the last several decades. Okay, Casey.
Senator, Mitch McConnell was quoted as saying about Jon Stewart and the 9/11 first responders that he doesn't understand why Jon Stewart is so bent out of shape. And obviously, Jon Stewart went on and said he's not bent out of shape, he's bent out of shape on behalf of all of these
Right.
responders. Do you understand why he is bent out of shape?
Of course. Leader McConnell and the Republicans have delayed this process as long as they can. They've limited it. We asked for permanence a while ago. They said only 5 years. We've asked for so many things. This should have been done and accomplished several years ago, and the only reason it's not is that Leader McConnell and several other Republican senators have stood in the way. So it is obvious why the first responders, who I know and see suffering from these cancers, are upset with McConnell. And let me tell you, Jon Stewart and particularly the leaders, Field and others, have tried to keep this as bipartisan as possible, but they can't because it's Leader McConnell in the Republican Senate blocking the full needs of the people who rush to the towers.
How do you explain to Americans who don't understand why there could possibly be opposition to this, why it's stuck in Congress?
You'd have to ask Leader McConnell, and that's what Jon Stewart did, and he had every right to do it, and he should keep doing it. Taylor.
Before you left for Memorial Day, you were pretty close over here with the Republicans on a border humanitarian package. Do you anticipate, before you leave for July 4th, that something along that?
Well, we'll see. As I said, the Republican offer had some, the President Trump's proposal had some things that are very needed, which we would support, had some things that are off the table, and some things that would be in a gray area. Now, Senator Leahy and Senator Shelby are coming back from the Paris this morning. We haven't been able to talk to them yet. They're in the air. They were supposed to be talking over the weekend. But I'd like to see some kind of action that deals with the humanitarian crisis, and can pass both the Senate and the House, because we got to get it done. It's serious. And when you read about that 4-month-old boy from Romania being separated from his parents, and to this day he's 1.5. He was back in Romania because parents were deported, and they finally found him and sent him to be reunited. That he hasn't spoken a word. He won't walk without holding the hand of an adult. And when they gave him to his mother, he cried. He wanted the foster mother back. This breaks your heart. This is so un-American. This is so unlike the goodness of the American people that President Trump has sort of hijacked this thing. And, his policies on immigration, I'll just address it a little further. His policies on immigration are inhumane. To break up families is just simply inhumane. These are not, he likes to use this and say, oh, they're all drug dealers. You see 98% or some high percentage of these immigrants, they're people fleeing for their safety. Their children, I mean, this four-month-old boy was a Roma, and there was great persecution in Romania, so, his parents, hardly seeking to take advantage. They saw the Statue of Liberty. They thought of freedom and safety, so they went all the way to Mexico and then all the way up Mexico to our border. It's inhumane. Inhumane. Second, the president tweets one day with no basis in fact. He's going to deport millions of people. Well, two of the highest ranking officials within the agency, within CSIS and Homeland Security, have said it's impossible to do. And they're not prepared to do it. And one day he says one thing, one day he says the next, and it makes the crisis worse, not better. He's not solving it, he's making it worse. And third, it doesn't work politically. I know he'll probably go to that rally. In the rally, I'd like him to talk about health care. I'd like him to talk about election security. I'd like him to talk about infrastructure, things the American people care about. He'll go back there and talk about immigration. Well, he created a big border crisis before the November 18 elections. It didn't do him much good. So it's even politically a policy that doesn't work. Go ahead, sir.
Well, since my 9/11 question got asked, I'll go back a little more on topic. This is part of the Democratic sort of effort to push back on President Trump. But a lot of folks, especially on the left, want more. They want some kind of impeachment. Your old colleague Elliot Engel just got
Is that on topic?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
It's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you risk, by not going more to the left, more towards impeachment, losing people like Elliot Engel, who have been here for a very
Okay, well, look, Elliot Engel's done a very good job, and I have a lot of faith in him in terms of his chairmanship of the Foreign Affairs Committee. There's an article today that he's handling it in a very masterful way. But on the impeachment issue, I think that we have to get as many facts out as we can. We don't know all of it yet. And the more and more facts come out, the better informed decision the American people and then the Congress can make on this issue. So I think the strategy of getting as much of the facts out and then, months down the road, making a decision on impeachment or not is the right strategy. Yes?
I want to go back to Iran. I know that you talked about the president needing to make his case for whatever sort of response is required, but do you still have questions from an intelligence standpoint about what happened with these shipping, these tanker ships? I mean, is there clarity within the
Well, we haven't gotten
we
haven't gotten a classified briefing. In this instance, it's necessary. So we don't know exactly. But, assuming Iran did it, that doesn't gainsay the need for the president to articulate a strong, consistent strategy before any action is taken.
Back on the 9/11 bill, there's been so much focus on McConnell and John Stewart, but the House isn't necessarily racing to pass this either. Hoyer said at some point before the August recess, they'd take it up. Do you think that the House should quicken its pace?
The sooner, from my view, the sooner the better.
Would you like them to change their timeline?
Well, sooner the better. Last question. Who didn't get a question yet? Okay, then last two repeat questions.
Thank you, Senator. Going back to Iran, adjacent to it, right now we still don't have a nominee for Secretary of Defense formally submitted.
Yes.
We have an acting Secretary of Homeland Security. Is there any concern that you're hearing from Leader McConnell that the president does not seem to think he needs to submit nominees to the Senate for confirmation?
Look, this administration, when in terms of foreign policy, in terms of national security, and has been much of the time asleep at the switch, like when it comes to nominees. They've had the slowest record, and people leave and they don't fill the position. Everyone liked General Mattis, Secretary Mattis, but the word is he lost faith in this administration. And so they're just not up to the task, and on foreign policy and on national security, as well as so many other things. Yes.
Can you please clarify your position on whether security threats associated with companies like Huawei should be linked to trade negotiations
Yes, I believe Huawei is a security threat, but I also believe strongly in reciprocity. China keeps many of our best companies out. And people say tariffs are an imperfect weapon. You ask them, what's another weapon? Well, there aren't that many. You're not going to stop China from investing in AI. You're not going to stop China from having the government control its biggest companies. That's an internal Chinese matter. But you can stop them from preventing American companies who sell good products from selling them freely in China, and responding and not letting China do the same here is probably about one of the best leverages we have. Thank you, everybody.
Senator Schumer, do you have a preview for the Democrats debate with so many of your members participating? Any expectations or thoughts?
I hope it's a great debate.